Hello and welcome to the Your Digital Directory QR Code or Virtual Directory webinar. My name is Greg Chambers and I am the founder of Screen Content Management and Your Digital Directory. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I hope that the time you spend here with us on the webinar will arm you with enough information to understand how the virtual or QR code directories work and how to use them at your property. After spending 30 plus years working for large corporations, I decided it was time to take my passion and experience to a business of my own. With my combined experience in analytics, business management, and technology, we launched Screen Content Management back in 2012 and then Your Digital Directory a few years later. Screen Content Management is a digital signage service provider that was originally designed to serve many verticals, including commercial real estate, but we decided that the commercial real estate market had some unique needs and needed a support system of its own. Your Digital Directory is continually developing and improving its platform to provide a great value-based solution. We decided to do this webinar because we received many questions about QR codes, and I think there are some misconceptions about what they are and how to use them. Our goal is to talk about QR codes at the user level and provide a better understanding of their function. Analog and digital directories will still play a part of the building directory solution offerings. However, virtual directories are here and they are now part of the conversation. To talk a bit more detail about this will be Jennifer Walsh, our marketing director. Prior to joining our company, Jennifer was working with physicians, attorneys, and service providers in the healthcare industry for many years. Since joining our company over 10 years ago, she has experience in designing, implementing, and managing digital signs, not only for the commercial real estate customers, but for all of our other vertical markets as well. I am excited to bring her on, so without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Greg, and thank you everybody who has joined us for this webinar today. I know that your time is your most valuable resource, and I appreciate that you've given some of that time to us today. To that end, I will be very mindful of your time. This will be ending promptly at 30 minutes, so you don't have to be worried that this will continue on along. I will allow you to get back to your day. I will stick around, though, and answer as many questions as come in through the chat. So don't be worried that your question won't get answered. I will stick around to answering them for as long as necessary. Now, on the point of the questions, please use the chat in the Zoom window to ask any questions that you may have as we go along. And you can access that. It will be either at the toolbar at the bottom or the top of the Zoom window, and enter those questions to the moderator. Also, another piece of housekeeping is please get your cell phones out. We're going to have quite a few different QR code or virtual directories that you're going to be able to scan as we're going through the presentation today. So you will be able to actually interact with them just as if you were standing in the buildings or on the properties where these QR codes reside. So have your cell phones handy so that you'll be able to utilize those QR codes. Now, moving on, I will be covering a couple of different topics today, as you can see on the agenda, some basics about what a QR code is and the facts and figures, and then where and why we see them so frequently in the community today. And then, of course, most importantly, how we're seeing them used in the properties that you yourselves work in, whether that's retail, office, or industrial. Some of the reasons and functionalities behind these virtual or QR code directories, and then, of course, the ever-important cost question. That, of course, is always pervasive on folks' minds. So moving right along, a QR code is most often black and white, but you'll also see it in some other colors. It does require kind of some high contrast as far as the colors are concerned. Black and white dots that are configured within a square, and smartphones are able to scan them, and then it translates that into information that the end user, the person holding the cell phone, can use. Now, the QR codes are free to the end user. It doesn't cost anything to scan a QR code. You may be paying for something utilizing a QR code, but to scan it, it doesn't incur any costs. You can use the camera app in your smartphone. And realistically, the QR codes are just the vehicle to get you somewhere. And that place might be a URL on the web. It might be a file that downloads to your device, or it even can have some other custom capabilities, such as prompting your cell phone to place a phone call, or in the case of the payment kinds of things, is to issue a payment. Now, the QR codes really are the next generation of the barcode or the UPC code that you used to see on all kinds of products. And the reason that it was invented is because it can hold and communicate a whole lot more data. Now, speaking of the invention date, QR codes actually have been around for quite a long time. They were invented in 1994 and were first used in automobile manufacturing. Now, there's been a couple of jumps across the years, which really coincided with an increase of use. As early as 2011, marketers were utilizing QR codes in their marketing campaigns. Marketers with names that we know, the retailers such as Best Buy and Macy's. And then, of course, the pandemic of 2020, across the world, everybody was scanning QR codes so that they could still order food from their favorite restaurant. Now, the reason that we've seen some of these jumps is because of the jump in adoption of smartphones. 85% of Americans carry a smartphone. Some of you, I imagine, have got 2 smartphones on your desk. You probably have one for work and one that's your personal cell phone. Now, for the generations 65 and under, that adoption rate is 91%. It's not as great with the 65 plus age group at a 61% adoption rate of smartphones. But as time marches on, of course, that adoption rate for smartphones that correlates with the adoption rate of the QR codes is going to continue to rise. Now, some of the places you may be seeing QR codes, because if you start to look, they're everywhere, is on airline boarding passes. I got on a plane last week, and everywhere I went in the airport, that was what got me, checked into my flight, got me through security and even onto the plane, was the QR code that resides on your phone. So they're used very frequently. You can share your business card using a QR code, and Snapchat was really the first social media platform that instituted a wide use of sharing your snap with a QR code. You'll see it on product marketing, and it's becoming very common for payment processing to have a QR code, and then that is the definitive directional payment to the exact retailer that you would like. Even this morning, as I was preparing for the webinar, I picked up the gum that I always have a pack of gum sitting in my desk, and there's a small QR code even on my little pack of gum. Now, they're being used in some really cool and innovative ways. Anybody who watched the Super Bowl of 2022 probably saw the Super Bowl ad. Now, when I think of a Super Bowl ad in my mind, I think of a slick and glossy production. It's got celebrities and explosions and high production value. This was not that. This is a very simple design of a QR code bouncing around the screen that's kind of reminiscent of an early Windows screensaver. Now, just the ad buy time was $6.5 million. And even the advertisers were unprepared for how popular this ad was. That QR code was scanned so many times that it crashed their website. Another cool way that we're seeing QR codes is these drone shows for the South by Southwest Music Festival. I mean, it's really kind of become more than just music, but anyway, Paramount teamed up with the makers of the Halo video game and flew a drone show that created a QR code that got to see some kind of sneak peek information. So there's a lot of really kind of cool and interesting ways that we're seeing QR codes used in the environment today. Now, some of the reasons why somebody might be using a QR code is because they are so popular. All of us have got those cell phones. Makes it very easy for us as the end user to scan them and get the information that the person who is developing the QR code would like us to have. And they're pretty easy to implement, and you can make them have quite a lot of functionality. They can do a lot of different things and take the end user a lot of places. And they're really low cost. Really, to implement a QR code is very low in cost. So this is where I would encourage you to grab your cell phones. You'll notice that there's a couple of QR codes on the screen that you can scan. One that is labeled Enhanced Building Directory and one that is labeled Standard Building Directory. As you can imagine, there's a wide variety of functionality that we can include within a building directory that uses the QR code as the vehicle to get someone to that directory. And the standard shows the basics, what we see as what is, required starting level for a directory, which is a list of tenants, their corresponding suite numbers, the building message center, and contact information for the leasing and property management team. Now, a few things about that building message center, if you'll take a note of that. As the management team, this building message center allows the management team to schedule messages, not only to begin automatically appearing, but also to automatically retire based on the date that the property management team deems appropriate. And you'll notice this building messaging center across all of our directories. We found it is something that everybody likes, uses, and needs. Some of the messages that we see the management teams using is there's a fire alarm test next Tuesday. Do not be alarmed, it's just a test. The west elevators are down. The east parking lot is, being restriped. We've got yoga on the courtyard starting at 7 p.m. Any of those types of messages that are really relevant to be sure that get not just to the office manager of your tenants, but everybody who visits your property. And this is a really great and efficient way to make sure they're all being notified. And you're not just printing up a document on Word and taping it next to your directory and kind of using something that is very lo-fi. So moving on to that, you'll notice that you have the ability to search for the tenant, as well as there's pagination so that you don't have somebody who is just endlessly scrolling, trying to find the particular tenant they're looking for. Now, if you scan that enhanced building directory QR code, which I'd encourage you to do so now, you're going to see some expanded functionality. Number one part of expanded functionality is that each and every tenant has a clickable link within that tenant listing that allows the end user to visit a whole nother page of information about that tenant. This is really useful for tenants to be able to communicate some additional information. If you select the Ceresa customizations, you'll notice they have some of the marketing images of some of the products that they put out there, as well as an animated map to help folks find them. There's also some outbound links you'll see there. In this particular case, they've selected their website as well as a phone link. Now, somebody that pushes that phone link, it will open up the calling function of their cell phone and place a call to the front desk of this particular tenant. If you pop back to the full list of tenants, and you can see there's a button at the bottom that says all building tenants. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll notice some additional functionality. We've got some links out to leasing, to the property management team. You're able to pay for parking. And then you also are able to see the conference room schedule. This is really important for some of those properties that have got those conference schedules where people outside the building are coming for particular meetings, depositions, whatever it might be. So you're able to see the schedule for the meetings that are publicly displayed. And then an end user would also be able to find a map that will help them navigate to that conference room. And you can see that by clicking the locator pin icon on the conference room schedule. Now, I would love it if you would flip over to page 2. And on page 2, you're going to find a couple of other tenants that have utilized this area a little bit differently. On page 2, if you select Work in Progress or Spivey Technologies, you'll notice that these particular tenants selected to have a video play on their page 2, marketing videos about their products and services. And then if you pop back to the main list and select Williams Law, you'll notice that Williams Law has a list of the associates that are within their firm. Now, we see this pretty commonly for the professional services. The professional services like to have all of their folks named, whether that's all of the doctors or the financial professionals that are within their group. So moving on to some other types of virtual or QR code directories are the properties that require a little bit more navigation to help people, a little bit more wayfinding to help people navigate the properties. And this is very common in a retail environment as well as any multi-building environment. And this could be multi-building industrial or even multi-building office property. How many times have you arrived on a property and thought like, okay, well, I don't know where building I is. Google Maps did a great job and it got me here, but now I can't find the exact building. And so to help that issue, these QR code directories put that map right in your hand. I don't know about any of you, but I drive around, even though I've lived in this city for going on 15 years and know it very, very well. Anytime I go anywhere, I have my Waze or my Google Maps running, helping me to avoid any detours or to navigate past traffic so I can arrive at my destination the easiest way possible. And so these virtual directories are just leveraging that habit that we already have in having our phones assist us in navigating a property. The QR codes for the with the navigation allow a user to touch a particular tenant, and then that user's location highlights on the map. Now, for any of the properties that are outdoor properties, we can include GPS guidance. So it will operate much like your Google Maps does. You'll notice on the retail that there is links for the special offers because, of course, in a retail environment, they want to be sure that anybody knows about any kinds of different discounts that they're offering. So now I'm sure you're wondering, what in the world does this even look like on property? And so you can see we've got a couple of examples of what some of the properties are doing to display the information that their directory lives behind a QR code. So a lot of this really relies on some of the analog signage that we have. And so you can see whether it's indoor, outdoors, whether people are approaching it on foot or on in their vehicles, you still are able to display these QR codes for folks to use. Now you'll notice the one that is the sticker, that particular property, she put it on all of her high touch areas, each and every one of the doors that enter the building, all of the elevator banks. She also even put it in the restrooms on the doorway exiting the restroom to help people navigate the property. So these are just a couple of examples. And because you're using this analog signage, what this does is it allows you to expand the access points for your directory without having an exponential expansion of cost. I asked one of my properties who was getting some of these signs printed if I could also just purchase one extra sign. And it's the sign there on the left that is that metal look sign. And when I purchased that, in addition to purchasing the others, it was only $11 to get an additional sign. So imagine if you wanted to add 10 access points for your directory, you're really looking at just over $100. Whereas other kinds of directories, especially the digital directories, you'd be looking at a minimum of $1,000 even just for a screen. So this really is a great way to expand those access point for folks. Now, all the directories you're looking at here are standalone directories, meaning that it is not a part of another directory. A lot of what we're doing right now is making the virtual directory an add-on, and that's an add-on to a traditional analog directory or a digital directory. So this is something that can be incorporated. Now, some of the reasons why someone might want a virtual directory, first of all, is because there's no hardware to purchase it or maintain. That hardware, realistically, it's that cell phone that we all have in our pocket. And so as the property, you are not maintaining and purchasing that hardware. That inherently is what makes it so low cost. Another important point that I would like to point out, and it was something that Greg really spearheaded when this was being developed, is that he wanted to make sure that there was no app to download to be able to access any of our building directories. And that's really important. First of all, I know if I'm downloading an app that it's just another person who's got my information that they're going to sell to another marketer, or they're going to use my mic on my cell phone to spy on me and advertise things to me. So for me, it is an irritant. For some folks, it's an obstacle where they just pure and simple would not download it and so would not have access to your directory. So I would just like to strongly make sure everybody realizes there is no app to download with your digital directory, virtual directories. They're really fast to implement. Essentially, as quickly as you can send me your rent rolls, we can stand up a virtual directory for you very quickly. For those that would like it, there are stats for usage that is available. And then for the management team, something that's typically very important for them is that it is web-based. The management team is making their updates to the listing on the directory, to the information being displayed on a web portal. So you log onto a website, click the pencil icon, edit the information that you're looking to edit, hit submit. Now, my programmers, forever are telling me I can't tell people it happens immediately. So I'm not saying it happens immediately, but it goes up and down to space a couple of times, goes through some servers, and it is being reflected on the directory that the end user has in their hand. So it's not immediate, but it's pretty stinking fast. So also, virtual directory is really cool. It's really modern. It is taking the habits that we already have in our daily life and leveraging them to make your property more efficient, more economical, and faster for people to access, for you to maintain. So it's got a lot of those kinds of benefits with the modernity that it has. Also, it has a ton of flexibility and function. We talked about some of those functions that it can do within a phone because somebody who's accessing it is a cell phone. So you're able to do a wide variety of things that accomplish the needs of your tenants. Because people are accessing it via their cell phone, it is inherently portable and multiple people can use it at once, which is not the case for some other types of directories. Also, one of the big challenges that we run into, especially when we are coming into a property that historically has an analog directory and is looking to upgrade, is you run into some infrastructure issues. Maybe there's not electricity where you would like to have your directory, or where it makes the most sense for people who are navigating into your property. Or pulling a hardline internet is just not possible when somebody is upgrading from an analog to a digital directory. For a virtual directory, you have none of those worries at all. It doesn't require electricity. It doesn't require a hardline internet. And then, as I was mentioning before, it is economical to scale this, to increase the access points to a variety of access points on your property without any issues. And it can be used as a standalone, the directory all encompassing of itself, or it can be an add-on to a analog directory or even an additional digital directory. So now that we understand why, I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the functionality that you can integrate into a virtual or a QR code directory. You've seen a few examples of the wayfinding, and that wayfinding can be in the form of image-based maps, animated maps, just some text explaining to somebody how to get somewhere, or even a point of view video that navigates the property. Outbound calls to security are something we see quite a lot, security or emergency services on your property. We can integrate that evacuation map the fire department requires you to have posted. And then we saw quite a few examples of that building message center. Of course, there are individual tenant pages that can be customized, as well as displaying the event calendar, the yoga in the lawn or food truck Fridays or whatever it is that your property is doing. We can, of course, display that meeting schedule that we saw on the office property, and then the GPS guided navigation for any of the outdoor properties. We all know the benefit that Google Maps has been to helping people navigate even familiar as well as unfamiliar locations. And then the visitor announcement. We had a server farm, Bank of America server farm in Virginia that contacted us, and they had kind of a unique need, is that people that came to the property needed to be escorted at all times, and they didn't want to have a security guard at front because they just didn't want that person to be become the escort for folks across the property, because they needed that person to remain right at that desk. And so we instituted a virtual directory, and it would call the person that was receiving the visitor, and then that person would come down and escort that person throughout the property. And then, of course, it can do a lot of things. And I have that there because I just want to point out our programmers are really creative, and they really welcome the opportunity to take a unique situation and put that into the programming of what the virtual directory can do. So if you've got some unique needs, something that's maybe not displayed here, please give us a call. Let us know what problem you're looking to solve, and our programmers can really kind of see if they can put their heads together to program something that can create that solution for you. So we are to the most important question, I know, in everyone's mind, and that is cost. So you've seen a variety of functionalities. And so, my question, or my answer to the question of what does this cost, is probably not going to be the one you would love to hear, but I am going to give you starting costs and kind of some ranges, and I'm sure you can do some inference from there. So we looked at a couple of directories for the office property. We looked at a standard directory and an enhanced. And for the directory that we were looking at, that standard starts at $613 with an annual of $320. Now, we will always package the billing for this particular product in whatever makes the most sense for your property. Sometimes folks want to have their directory as a CapEx, so we'll package it up as a full all-in 2-year pricing, or people want it as CapEx and OpEx, and so we'll split it with a start fee and an ongoing annual. So we'll do it whatever way makes the most sense. And that ongoing annual, what that covers is keeping all of the connections and functions working. There's a web portal that the management team logs on to make those changes, making sure that that platform communicates directly to the website that the end user is using, and all of those links in the chain are working. So that's what that ongoing annual fee covers. Now, we also looked at that enhanced directory. So just to remind you, the standard directory started at around $613 with the annual of $320. So the enhanced directory is about $999 for the start fee, and then $371 for the ongoing annual fee related to that. Now, there's a QR code on this screen, and I would encourage you to scan this as well. This QR code will take you to a pricing tool where you can put in a couple of options of what you would like, and then it will spit out an email with a pricing estimate for you for those options. And in this particular pricing tool, you can retrieve pricing not only for the virtual directories, but also for a touchscreen or a standard screen directory, even an offline directory if those are appropriate for your particular property. So that is all the information that I've got to present to you today. I want to thank everybody for your time and attention. All of my contact information is on the screen. And so I would encourage you, if you've got any other additional questions, if you've got some unique functionality that you would like to see implemented within your particular property, give us a ring. We'd love to understand what you've got and what you might need for your property. Thanks so much, and I'll get to the questions now.